there. Welcome to the SBP podcast, the voice of mobile film. I'm Susie Botello, your host, and this is our 12th episode, the first episode of 2018. Wow, we actually made it to 2018. Can you believe it? We're stoked. So we started our podcast late last year, and here we are in the beginning of the year. This is our very first show of the year, and we're pretty excited about that. We're going to go to a place where we haven't gone before. We're going to go to Germany. Actually, we're going to go to Berlin. Our guest for this podcast show is Blake Worrell. Blake is a musician, an actor, and a filmmaker. He's an artist. His film, Dissolution, received the Global Best Cinematography Award at the Global Mobile Film Awards last month. So we're going to have a deep discussion about his work and his film, which he shot with a smartphone. But before we do that, we just want to share some really cool things with you regarding the International Mobile Film Festival in San Diego, because it's happening on April 28th and 29th. And in case you don't already know, we celebrate making movies with mobile phones, like exclusively just mobile phones. So we want to share this awesome industry with you. We want to meet you, and we want to share this global mobile film community at the film festival right here in San Diego. So go to our website to get all the details, and stay tuned by following us on Facebook and our other social media. And you can find those by scrolling all the way down to the bottom of our website and clicking on whatever social media you happen to be on, where we happen to be as well. Our website address is www.internationalmobilefilmfestival.com. We want to give a big shout out to our sponsor, Red Giant. If you're a filmmaker, you've probably already heard about them. Most likely, you either get their software already or you would love to get their software. You can visit them at redgiant.com. They've sponsored our film festival since day one, and we're going on our 7th year. So they're very special to us, and we're beyond being grateful. We're glad that they have such a wonderful reputation. Okay, we're going to go to our interview next. But before we do that, I just have one last thing to mention to you. As we get closer to the film festival, we could use your support. We have a Patreon page set up where you can become a patron, and you can support our film festival, our podcast, and all that we're doing with mobile filmmaking for you. So go and become a subscriber, because one of the benefits that you'll receive there is some really cool bonus and exclusive episodes of this podcast with the guests. They are sharing special and exclusive, again, exclusive meaning you're just not going to be able to get these anywhere else. Tips, advice, and insights that they're sharing just with our patrons. So go there and become a super rock star to get the most of the SBP podcast. www.patreon.com/SBP podcast. And now let's go to Berlin and talk to Blake Worrell. Hi, Blake.
Hey.
How are you?
Doing great, thanks. And yourself?
I'm doing great. For listeners, this is Blake Worrell. He is the Global Mobile Film Awards winner for Best Cinematography. and you are in Berlin, in Germany, correct?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay, so I know I'm going to enjoy this discussion with you. Um, but before we get too far into that, why don't you share a little bit about yourself and your history and how you came across mobile filmmaking with with myself and our listeners?
Well, um, it starts way back. I guess it starts when I first picked up the. If we're gonna go that far back, it would start when I um, saw Empire of the Sun.
Hmm.
Um, I was really that movie really affected me. In my perspective, that was a very. I mean, Spielberg. He did many films before that. I mean, E.T. and for one sticking out for many people uh, in that era, and even now, uh, it's kind of timeless. E.T. But Empire of the Sun really stuck out with me. Acting and filming and directing, and um, I knew it was a movie at the time, and I knew what movies were. I mean, being born and raised in Los Angeles, I knew that, but that was one where I really felt like, wow, I want to be a part of this. I want to share stories.
How old were you, if you don't
And
mind my asking, around that time?
uh, wow, when was that? Empire of the Sun. Geez, I don't know if it was. I think it was 89, right? 87, 89.
I don't remember
Uh,
exactly, but
yeah, it was about. I think it was around 11 years old.
oh yeah, very
So
impressionable
yeah,
time.
yeah, and then after that, I picked up a book, a giant book, ILM book. So it showed everything that ILM has ever made, and that even resonated with me more. I want to be more involved in the film. And then fast forward to when I was 19, I started knocking at the door of Roger Corman, Concord Films over in Santa Monica, and just kind of bugging him for months to work there. And that just and finally they took me in. I worked there for free for a little while, and then finally after I think 6 months or so, um, they're like, "All right, kid, you seem really into it. Okay, you ready to get paid now?" And then that was it. Then I met a few people that actually um, helped me out to bring me over here to Berlin, and yeah, I pretty much learned all about post in that time from the age of 19. So doing post production audio, and I think that's really important in film, and I have to say that's really been helpful because it doesn't matter what your film looks like if it has the right sounds and it's not hitting those frequencies that are really annoying. Um, you're pretty much solid, of course, with story and all that. Um, but that really sticks out in terms of quality. Um, and I've seen that frequently in mobile filmmaking that something looks pretty good, but the sound is just terrible.
Yeah.
And some people could say that, yeah, okay, well, I'm listening on my mobile phone or I'm watching on my computer. Well, I don't know. I believe that there is a large group, and also that Apple TV, for instance, has YouTube and Vimeo um, on their system, and it's it really sticks out when the quality when the audio quality of mobile of any film is really on top of its game, then it sticks out no matter what you're listening on, even in your computer speakers, which I don't agree with. I love listening on headphones and completely
It's like
zoning out.
it's like a visual song, which is like a music video or something like that, where if the sound is not great, right, then that's part of the captivation. That's when you feel it. There's something about when you're going into a theater, or like in my case, I have my laptop hooked up to my big Sony speakers at home, and it can be a small little movie on Vimeo that I'm watching. It could be a 2-minute movie. It doesn't matter. But when that sound is big, it's like you're immediately immersed, and you're captivated by it. It just feels
right? And
awesome.
that's such an awesome experience. I mean, that's the um, cinema experience, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And if you're listening to it on your phone, um, most of the time you're not listening to it through your phone speakers. You got your, headphones, or
Headphones or whatever.
right.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, post production is big, and especially in watching a film, right? When you're shooting it with any camera for that matter, and then you want to treat it in post production, that's when you can bring that film and that footage to life, in many ways, not just the sound, but also with color grading and special effects or whatever you need to do.
Yeah, so I've had the incredible opportunity at a young age to dive in, actually from the back forward. So usually the last step that people take in film is sound. That's the last step before it actually goes out. And coloring gets done, everything, effects, all that stuff, and then finally, bam, it gets printed.
Right.
So it's really great to go that way because I think there's been, I mean, and from what I've seen, I think there's a little misconception of how it's handled, and I think it's really important to know how everything works before you go into it. But this is, again, this is what I've learned over time because, for instance, actors, they just want to get an act, or even directors, they just want to jump in and direct. And they know that there's sound involved, they know there's video involved and all that stuff, and they know about cameras, but it's mostly focused on technical. I noticed that a lot of schools and such, because also doing acting myself, um, starting off, I did work with different schools and such. I noticed a lot of directors just had no idea where it goes on. They know it goes into, post, but they don't really. It doesn't seem like it's. Um, it seems like there's more focus on the technical aspect than the actual process of it, and how it could be improved in the actual production. So in some cases, to be working on something and know that, okay, I'm going to add this later on so we can trick it like this, and I know this
Exactly.
step, I'll do it, because they could think ahead. And I think that's what's lacking um, in my perspective in the industry today.
Yeah, the
Even
camera
recently.
person, the camera person who also is an editor, right? Is that kind of like what you're saying? That
Yeah, or,
because
or they know. I mean, working on high budget films. I mean, everyone knows where it's going to go and the steps it takes to go where it's supposed to go.
right,
So usually, I mean, it's known, like, okay, well, we're going to do this, but the director is the guy who is, or the girl or lady, excuse me. Um, the director is the person who knows what's going to happen down the line. So at the end of the day, it's their decision. Of course, yeah, the camera guy should know uh, the steps to be taken as well. Um, and that only then it's like everyone's like a Swiss Army knife on set, and that's great to have. I mean, who else better to work with than um, someone who knows what you're talking about. Um, for instance, I've been on sets where, oh yeah, we have to have the sound of the door closed, so we'll close the door now, or I'll do this sound in the background, um, so we have it there. And it's like, no, you can do that later.
Right.
You don't have to wait for it. Otherwise, if it's for the actor to react off of, sure, um, that's okay too.
Like
Um,
recording natural sound, when you get there in case things happen that you have some coverage with that, and
yeah,
things like
natural
that.
things like putting shoes on or whatever the heck it is. It's just
Right.
yeah, it's helpful. It's been very helpful to know that, and I have to say it's been very effective in my progress, even early on, with music, because I got involved with music at the same time, actually earlier than that, and I just did it as a hobby. Like, okay, I'm just gonna do this, and then my job was working in audio post. And when I came to Berlin, actually that switched. I started doing more music, released several albums, and toured around Europe and such. And then I just did audio as a hobby. And at that same time, too, I was learning how to edit. I, you know, dab a little bit with Premiere, and I always did Photoshop. I always did that on the side for, I think, since I was 19. Also, I think it's good to be a little bit of a tech nerd.
Yeah, well,
It's really
you were
important to know the tools.
an
Uh,
artist with a flair for the tech, obviously, and that
yeah,
comes in super handy because most people, like me, for example, I used to draw a lot when I was a kid, but when I didn't really care for the whole technical part of, like later on, I went into graphics design, and that was something I did for, my way of doing art and get paid, you know, for
yeah,
doing it.
yeah,
But I was really against it at first. I was like, oh, how can it be art if you're using, you know, digital tools and a computer and, you don't have your hands into it, and things like that. And I wasn't
right,
alone in that, but people like you are admirable because you have, it's kind of like someone who can sing and dance at the same time. Probably not the
yeah,
best, but you know what I mean, right?
yeah, yeah. I mean, if you can sing and dance, that's awesome too.
Yeah. Well, like you're a car racer, you're racing a car, but you're also a mechanic. That comes in really handy.
Yeah, and I use that exact example actually a lot
Huh.
with other people. I say, look, a race car driver doesn't just get in the car and race. You can't be a race car driver without knowing how your car works. You know what things you need to tune up your car. You know what intakes, what even kind of exhaust you need, what kind of tires you need, what kind of rims. Um, all that stuff, all that technical stuff is needed. Uh, because when you go on the field, you want to run and you don't want to break down halfway.
Right.
And that's really important, I think, in film too. It's important to know what you're doing. If you want to be a director, if you want to do post, if you want to, work in audio post, if you want to work in video, uh, anything you want to do in film, I think it's important to know all aspects of it. So when something uh, isn't working or goes awry, you know what department to go to even fix it or learn, okay, well, that could have been done differently, as opposed to just like, well, that's the way it is. Well, I don't know how it is, but whatever. Um,
That makes
yeah,
you
it's
a
really
good
important.
director as well because you're the visionary. It's your vision, and you almost especially when you're working with a team, you have to know what their capabilities are instead of just what they're saying they can or cannot do, and they're depending on you to know that.
Yeah, and actually, I wasn't I didn't know I'd be directing so soon. Actually, I I wanted to. I knew I wanted to be involved in production. Um, yeah, and it just happened because it's just like, well, after working with many directors, it just didn't seem um, to I don't know. I felt like I could do better, and that's why I challenged myself. Actually, it happened by accident. I was on set doing a movie, actually a short film, a student film, and the director, I don't know, he had a breakdown, and he couldn't handle it because the actress, she pulled out, and things weren't going right, and so he was just going to shut it all down. I said, look, it's not going well, and I already invested a lot of time into it. Even though I was called last minute, one of the actors pulled out. Uh, I said, okay, look, no, we're not going to shut down. I'll take it from here. And so I just modified the story and said, okay, look, let's get this other actress in, and we're going to just modify it a little bit. Because things got messed up. There's a police involved. They didn't have the police car either. So there's a lot of improvisation that needed to be involved. So basically, I ended up directing like the ending and changing the story where it would go. And that actually, it's called Echoes. And I actually did the sound on it because the sound guy wasn't. I don't know what he was recording, but it wasn't. It was terrible. The audio was absolutely terrible. I just remember they weren't hitting record a lot of the time and kind of spaced out.
Oh no.
So actually, all the audio had to be redone. So we had to ADR most of it, all of it practically. And so I fixed it up because I just was like, look, I want to do this. I've done this many times before, but I feel like I got to do this. And it was more to prove to myself that I could do it. And I think that's the thing. Sometimes we have to go beyond our own limit to prove to ourselves that we can do it. David Bowie said, I don't like to be too comfortable. I like to go right on the edge of comfort and go there and push that. And those words really resonate with me because I think that's true. You gotta push yourself that extra mile, and the next thing you know, that's your new comfort zone. And then
that's
you do
when
that
you're
more and
really
more.
living it, really living a moment. Is when you're right between those two spaces of comfort and freaked out.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, my first film that or short film that I directed and shot and edited and did sound for was called The Weird Sisters, and I had a nervous breakdown right when I was sending it out. It was just because I took so much time on it, and I was a perfectionist, and I waited really to the last minute to send it out to the festival. And so I had a nervous breakdown because I thought I wasn't even going to send it out. And I felt like, gosh, all this work I did, it's not going to get there. And at the time, I thought that was like one of the only mobile phone film festivals, the SF3, Smartphone Flick Fest in Sydney. And yeah, I had my nervous breakdown. But from that, I realized, okay, I'm going to do this a lot earlier. But that film also opened up so many doors for me, and other festivals started contacting me, and I realized that there's a whole bunch of mobile phone film festivals, And not only that, that those film festivals themselves actually opened other doors for me, which got me in contact with uh, other filmmakers to work with in the future.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's a community. I mean,
it is.
it's almost like, well, you're in the music industry, so you know what I'm saying, that this is really an emerging industry right now, because it's been sort of dormant and underground, but not dormant in the sense that it's been doing nothing.
Yeah.
It's just been an underground uh, culture, really, that has been
Yeah.
going on for years. I believe it really started in 2004
Yeah.
with some very few people that were getting really creative, and that's when cell phones were out, not even smartphones.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
know when I started doing this back in 2009, when I launched this thing, I think it was like later in the spring, early in the summer of 2009, I couldn't find anything on it, much less film festivals that were willing to put it on the big screen. It was even before the iPhone 4 came out, which was
Right.
given the opportunity to do, HD even at the lowest level. But yeah. And speaking of, one of the opportunities that it gave you was to be a part of the Global Mobile Film Awards, which has been dubbed as the Oscars of the mobile film industry. And there, you won your cinematography award, which basically labels your film the best in the world, um, as a mobile film awarded for cinematography. And why don't you share with our listeners who may not have seen the film yet, and we'll provide a link for that on the show notes as well, but a little bit of a synopsis on the film, and then share uh, about how you went about making that film.
So, Dissolution is about a man whose life has changed in the blink of an eye, and basically witnesses the dissolution of his life as he once knew. Um, I don't know if I won't. I mean, it's a 6.5 minute short film. Uh, he has to. He has a calling, and I think every film has that journey where the protagonist has a call and has to take that call. So, being that there's only 6.5 minutes, I just took that part, the call, because usually the call is something intense. For instance, Ferdinand. I just saw this animation movie that just came out about the bull. Uh, his call is when his father doesn't come back, and he wants to escape, and he wants to go out into the wild, and so he escapes. Um, so I think those are pretty important. I mean, I think life is about choices and the choices we make, and we could either run from those choices, um, or we could take it head on. And that film is about, taking it head on, taking that choice. It was made with iPhone 6s. I had a B script cage, the first edition. They have a second edition that just came out. And attached to it, I had a Canon 50 millimeter. And I chose the 50 millimeter because millimeter is the basically the human eye perspective. It's the closest thing to the human eye perspective. The 4x3 that I used in it, I didn't want to use anamorphic or widescreen whatsoever, because I really wanted to have this feel of being kind of trapped a bit.
I see.
And that's why in the dream sequences or these flashback sequences, there's a widescreen, because it has a separation. You notice that.
Yeah.
And also to keep it kind of midfield, low, or shall I say, at a low stance, kind of like the height of a child, as if a child is watching.
Mm.
And you'll know why, because in the film, when you see it, what's happening. So I really want to give that sense of this childlike view, just standing there watching. And honestly, the 4:3 wasn't. I wasn't sure about it. I had left it open, and with the old edition of the B script, with the adapter that I had to it, it created this kind of vignetting, and I wasn't sure I wanted to use that, but actually it just kind of clicked. When I played it back, I just saw like, no, 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 this is going to go 4:3. So actually, in the middle of production, I said, okay, no, we're going to do this 4:3. This is great. And also the depth, the perspective too, being always outside of the door.
Yeah.
Also, it's just one step out. Um, I think that's what I love about film. What I've learned is, I think in film you got to be a magician. You got to know how it works. And for me, I like these little subconscious things that you could put there. The height of the kid, the perspective of the kid, the one step out of the door. Also, the fact that
Sort of like an
I'm
eavesdropping effect.
yeah, this eavesdrop exactly, and also symbology, the fact that I'm raw, I'm half naked. That's or the character, I should say,
Yeah.
is exposed, and because of the situation that happened, it's symbolic. It for me, it needed to be there. He is exposed, and you see it in him. He's there, and she's reflecting his exposure as well. Because in a relationship, you feel your partner, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, at the end, going down into the depths of that task, taking that call.
Yeah, there's that one scene when you take the call and you get up and you go to the table and she goes to you. Uh,
Uh,
and the camera movement on that. Not the camera movement, her movement as opposed to the camera moving. It was your actor is moving away from the
yeah,
frame.
yeah, I think that's really important. Scene blocking. I mean, uh, Alfred Hitchcock was a master at that, and that is so necessary. It's like you were saying earlier, sing and dance. Um, and I think Spielberg once said it: if the camera's not moving, the people are moving.
Exactly.
And for me, that's what it is. And being that I was also filming it, I couldn't have anyone move it, and so I had to just block it and make things move within it. And it wasn't like, oh, I have to make it move. It was just, okay, what would be the natural situation? What would seem natural? It wouldn't seem like choreographed. And it can be done. I mean, when we're talking to people, we're usually, especially in this day and age, we're multitasking. We're walking around, we're doing stuff, we're looking at things, or we're talking about something else and chopping carrots or whatever, you know.
Yeah, and
We're
in
not talking.
film, everything has a purpose, though. Every little thing
It
has a
does.
purpose. I mean, you
It does.
chose to do something in a particular way for a reason. It's not like it just happened that way.
Right? And he's always on the other side of the door. He's always going out the other side of the door. Wakes up, he moves out of that door, goes to the other room. She comes in, he leaves that. He doesn't want her to join him on this journey, but she wants to be a part of it. It's also that, and she's slowly letting it be, slowly and slowly. Um, yeah, it's
And she
one
doesn't
of
have a voice in the film either.
No, and
And that's
actually there was,
another,
yeah, there was also there was a lot of dialogue actually
yeah.
that was put into it, and it could go over well over 4 or 5 minutes back and forth. But in the end, uh, in editing, actually, it just looked those looks, when you speak to someone and you say something and then you kind of choke up, and that little choke up says more words than all the words that came out of your mouth. That for me was it. I said, okay, look, they really shouldn't talk at all, because those little special moments are the best. So I just got these little moments, these little pauses between sentences, and just put those in, and that worked great too, because we're looking directly into the camera, and that's another thing too. It's the perspective as well. This child height perspective. Um, so it's very raw. You piece it all together with the story. It's all there, and uh, I have to admit that Yasujiro Ozu was a big influence as well. And actually, because I studied his films, um, that film would have been possible, or shot like that, if I had not um, seen Yasujiro Ozu, because he is, for me, one of the great masters of cinematography. The way he shoots, and he also shoots at a low stance in 4:3. Um, and also another Easter egg, so to say, is that I wasn't prepared to go this route with the story.
Hmm.
Actually, the story was about something completely different.
Wow.
Yeah, and that happened by chance in editing. And then I realized, okay, well, we're just going to change the audio around. So all the audio that you hear, every single bit of it, was done afterwards, from the shower to the door handle to the belt buckle, to the dialogue on the phone. Even the airplane, actually, because it was kind of last minute. I just had a mic in my studio, and there's planes that go by, so I left the door open, and you could hear the planes, so it have this kind of real natural sound of it. And then I added some other planes as well, and helicopters, so it could have this feel like they're living in a rural area that has these things that we don't think about. There's helicopters that go over all the time in LA, for instance,
Yeah.
or police cars that pass by every now and then. And I think that adds to it, even though it's
Subtle.
natural in some way. It's subtle, and in watching, like as you said before, nothing is a mistake. Nothing is by chance. It's all meant to be there. So at the beginning, she's looking out the window. You hear that siren, and it's just kind of a calling as well. It's funny, when we watch films, sometimes we see right in front of our face what the film is about, but it doesn't hit us to the end. And I think that adds to that aha moment. And I think that's what I really love about film as well. Is it's a magic trick.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to. That's part of the magic of filmmaking, that it is. It's all one big magic act, and you don't even know where it comes from. And sometimes you can be laying there in bed after going to see a movie or something and trying to go to sleep hours later after, you've had dinner, you've done this and done that, and then parts of that film come up and hit you. And
Yeah,
yeah, it has a psychological effect, and some of the best films I've ever watched can hit me back and forth for days and weeks and
Yeah,
years,
they could
you
really
know?
affect our lives,
Yeah,
even the way we see things.
yeah.
And that's one of the things too I wanted to add in the film is and it happened naturally too, to show a side of a story that um, we're not used to seeing. Usually you would see the accident, you would see the drama in the hospital, you would see, all this other stuff, but to show that other perspective, that hit where, whoa, what, this is a whole nother place. Is this person guilty? Or are they innocent?
Yeah, it has you thinking throughout as you're consuming, going, oh, what happened? Well, I don't want to give the film away.
Yeah.
I want people to actually watch it and maybe even watch it more
Yeah.
than once, especially
Yeah.
now. think I'm gonna go watch it again. um,
Yeah, it's great when you know these different
the backstories,
symbologies,
yeah.
and yeah, the backstory of it and such, and why certain things were chosen to do certain ways.
So I have a
And
question regarding, the last part of the film in that stairwell and the song that you chose for it. Did you, first of all, the song, it reminds me of like the Jim Morrison, The Doors. So
yeah,
I don't know, maybe I'm being a
thank you,
weirdo
thank
here,
you.
but because we're talking about the doorways, right? And looking
Yeah.
outside doors, and then you hit that song with the winding stairwell, which kind of reminds me of an old film, the feel of that stairwell, and then you've got something that sounds like the doors. So maybe I'm connecting things that weren't meant to be connected, but now I can't help it. But would you tell me if that was, I mean, I'm sure it was deliberate, but how did you come about that scene with the stairway, and where did you pick such an awesome stairwell to shoot in?
Well, this was in Paris actually where we shot, and we had been postponing it for a while, and actually the whole film itself was shot in about 8 hours, and we had to check out. So we didn't have much time. We were only there for one day, and so we literally were waking up, and then we did it chronologically, and
Yeah.
and then leaving, and just by chance it happened to be a great stairwell, and um, the song that was used was also by chance. Actually, I started to go a little classical. I actually had a kind of violin playing, um, but a very actually it was a viola, and I thought something's the pressure of this guy is so heavy. I really it does the violin doesn't do justice. It's more like a victim, but I don't want that kind of victim. I want more just this frustration with life, and I want it to hit hard, and I want it to be jolting. And I literally wanted to express the noise of this guy's head um, on going down the stairs, and that's pretty much what it was. And it just again, it happened naturally. Actually, um, I shot this at a friend's house, or I recorded it at a friend's house. At the last minute, I couldn't. And it was one of those things where it's like, wow, what am I? Okay, I'm really doing this. All right, well, let's do it. And you just kind of got to go with the flow. You can't force it. And even though I thought like, okay, this could be jolting for some people, I really wanted to do that because I felt it did justice to the character, and it helped push the film to where it needed to go. And That's, and also the text itself was improvised. And just feeling in that moment, basically singing it myself. I was literally looking at the film and just had that downstairs in a loop, and just kind of at the end just closing my eyes and just feeling what that character was feeling, and just speaking from the soul, from the gut. And then I just recorded that. I mean, it took me about 15 minutes, and then I just literally just slapping my hands on the keyboard because I wanted to have that disorganized, uh, not on perfect tempo hits, because it's his life. It's crumbling down.
It's
It's just
messy.
falling apart. It's very messy. So yeah, that music was by chance.
Wow. Well, I like it.
Yeah, it's amazing when we things, and I've noticed this before in other films I've done. Things just, when we have something to share, a story that really that we feel we need to tell, things will just happen naturally,
You're
and
so right.
you got to just trust. You just got to trust and enjoy the journey.
Yeah, you are so right. You know, just being in, editing myself where I've gone, I don't know how I'm gonna make this sequence work here. I've got this here. I don't know about this song. I'm trying to make something match, and then you slap something on there literally, right? And then all of a sudden you play it back, and you're like, oh my god, no one's gonna believe that this just happened, and it's so perfect. You know, it's so
Yeah,
great.
yeah,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
yeah, and also even before, we make mistakes in life, and we make mistakes in films as well. And I think mistakes are not, they're not failures. They're opportunities to grow. And to your surprise, those quote unquote mistakes can actually be blessings.
Yeah.
Like this film, for example, we literally had about 10 hours to shoot. Um, didn't know what we were going to shoot. We had a whole different story in mind. Uh, we did it based upon that story. And somehow in editing, things just, I felt like I had to go this direction. And I went that direction, just went with it. And all the emotions that were there for that story. And everything just connected all the way up to the song. And
Yeah.
even shots too, when we're shooting, just, stock footage, B-roll. Sometimes that one little close up on that piece of crumbled paper is like, that would complete the film. It's sure on set, you're doing this whole film and everything, and you don't think about it, like see a crumbled piece of paper and think, crumbled piece of paper, wow, I want to shoot that. It's like, no, 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 shoot everything.
Yeah.
And especially in this day and age where we have digital, and it's great to get little things like that symbolic stuff, because it can be very helpful in the end. Of course, some people might argue with better to have less footage than more. Um, I think especially in this case of winging it and just doing it. No, you should get everything, and try different things.
Yeah, you can play with it later, and whatever works best works. It's better. I mean, I'm a big firm believer of it's better to have a lot of candy and then select the chocolates.
Right.
And then you can leave the other one aside for later or something. But
Right.
how would you know unless you had it to put it in
Right.
there and then take it out if you don't want it?
Right. And so I have to say, some motivational drivers for me. One person in particular was Anthony Montes, and he's been a huge mentor in my career recently. helping me push forward. He's someone who's been around for the last 30 years, doing lots of films. He's writing, acting, producing, and he actually is the one that told me I should do this. I should go forward and do something with my phone. And then, of course, my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, she also pushed me forward as well, saying, "Yeah, I'll do it." And she has a career expanding over 20 years as well, and she's been very supportive, and also is the producer on the last few films I've made. And she helps also move forward. So it's great when you have just even one or two people who are pushing you. I can't I can't explain how much that helps. It's always great to have someone by your side, whoever it is, even to seek out someone. I would say to people listening, if there's somebody you know who's really passionate about it as much as you are, seek them out and work with them, and challenge each other to go forward and learn more, because that's so vital. Because I could say also, as a person who has learned so much and I've done a lot of things myself as well. It's hard. It's hard to be alone and push forward with something, with especially film. You really need to learn how to have a team, and the team is so vital. I mean, everyone from the catering even. It's so important to have a team and fit everyone together. I can't tell you how many times I've been on set and in the early days too, is where catering is just kind of overlooked, or even actors are looked at as a completely different creature, not as part of the team. The actors are as much as important as the grip.
Yeah.
Or even the catering. It's all one big package, and everyone is together in it. Because if the catering makes some bad stuff and everyone gets sick, guess what? They can't go forward, or they push forward, and it's very messy.
Yeah, no.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's
It's
so
like the spokes on
important.
the
It must be
wheel,
recognized.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's a group effort, and I've seen that a lot of times in student films where everyone, it's like the director's the main person, and then everyone kind of just avoids the actors, or vice versa. The actors are the most important. Everyone else is disregarded.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I've been on film sets where I go to, I tend to do this. It's part of my personality where if there's a bunch of people in the room and everybody's talking, I tend to notice the one sitting in the corner, just sort of
Mm-hmm.
sitting there by themselves. And that's the person that I'm attracted to going over and saying, "Hey, how you doing?" And sort of to entertain them, I suppose. But they usually will tell me, I wish I was part of the crew right now because you guys are bringing this whole thing to life and you get to do something and be a part
Mm-hmm.
of it in this way, and we're just sitting here waiting for you to call on us to do our part. um, and it's hard for them sometimes, which is part of the reason why I think a lot of actors do end up behind the camera basically.
Well, it's hard to, um, for beginners, um, uh, when you're working hard and someone's on their phone, or you're working on a scene, especially as an actor. And I've seen productions too where the director just doesn't notice it, and this is also something as a director has to take care of. How their team is. They got to be aware, or especially the assistant director, and I think that's so vital. I've seen a lot of, independent films, sometimes there's no assistant director, and
Oh,
it's just
yeah. If you're
wow,
not
how can you
doing
do that?
something, you're like, why are you here?
Yeah, well, yeah. With no assistant director at all, that's so hard because it's you have to focus on so many things. And in my perspective, I think you really have the core is the actors, the cameraman, DOP, and the director. That's the main core. And then the assistant director, for me, in a way, is kind of that buffer and needs to have things on point with everyone else. And it's hard when my point to all this is that, for instance, having a heavy scene, you know, and something's going on that's really impactful in the scene, and it's vital to the story. And after every take, as soon as the director yells cut, someone's making a joke or laughing or talking about, oh, I'm so tired, I can't wait I'm so hungry, I want to eat something. You hear this little chatter in the background. Um, it's so important to have a team that is there throughout and is going through the process together as a team. That for me is so vital and is needs to be more of, whereas everyone is in it together.
If everybody's connected, though, and if everybody is connecting, that just doesn't really happen, where you have
No,
people just dropping off like, it's like, what are you thinking? I've actually been very fortunate to be on student films, independent films, and sometimes even with crew who have worked in Hollywood. And I've been really fortunate to never have, I mean, I've heard nightmare stories,
yeah,
about crew who just is completely incompatible. I've always walked out of a set feeling like, oh my God, I just met my family that I didn't know I had, and we
yeah,
stay connected. I've seen people who have uh, leaped and, just performed, you know, how could I say, like superheroes, helping each
yeah,
other and making sure something happens that, we're going to make it happen somehow. Because the
yeah,
unexpected happens on every set,
yeah.
and that's
And
really
when it
vital.
doesn't, sometimes it shows in a good way or even a bad way.
Yeah.
That's where the film crumbles. It's because we look at the film and we're as a viewer, as an audience, we we don't know what was happening that day. We don't know what was happening behind the camera. Uh,
And we don't
that's
we
why
don't
it's so
really
important to
want
have a
them
good
to
team.
know, because that we just want
No,
them to
we
see
don't.
the magic and to feel that and have no clue as to what it took to make that happen
Yeah,
or not,
yeah.
obviously.
And sometimes when someone's doing a bad performance, it's because it could be because something happened. It
Yeah.
could be just bad direction. Maybe the director wasn't really present or was, just want to move on. Another thing with mobile films, it's some things are very. I noticed with short films too that there's sometimes there's too much technical stuff. Uh, you know, visual candy and things like that, as opposed to story. Um, and I think that's so important also as a director to see that there's a reason to not look just at the technical stuff, but look at the performance of the person who's on camera, because that's what's going to stick out. They're not going to look at the nice lighting in the background with the sun going through and all that. As the audience, we're looking at the person talking. And I think that's also what needs to be focused on a lot, and mobile phone filmmaking as well. That it's not just effects and
Right.
all that. It's really the story as a whole, and
You're right.
and
It's
actually,
it's been lacking the performance, the great
mm,
performances in front of the camera. And that's also due to the fact that in a lot of times the budgets are really low, or they're thinking, um, I can make a movie with my phone, and then they start talking and thinking about the gear, the phone, the this, how to make it
Mm,
work around that camera you selected with the phone,
mm,
and they forget that the whole what really drives a film, the foundation of a film is that story, and in order to have a
exactly.
compelling story, you have to have that performance.
I mean, look for me. The movie Pi.
Yeah,
So that for me is a perfect example. Um, it was 1998, and it's just you know, Darren Aronofsky is just, I mean, what a great director. That he really, it's tons of noise. It's black and white, and the story is incredible,
yeah,
and then also sound as well. But it just goes to show that mobile phones today are way more advanced looking than that movie is in terms of quality,
right.
on a technical aspect. Um, so I think uh, in my perspective, what I've noticed, some people think, oh, it's a mobile phone. It's not going to be good quality. It's something you use on your, make phone calls. No, they shoot in 4K at 60 frames per second now.
Yeah. And let's
You,
just, I
you,
mean, even without the bells and whistles, really, without the gear, the apps, and anything, even by
yeah,
itself, they're awesome.
yeah. They're literally, people have literally cinema cameras in their pocket. So now we live in an age where anybody can tell a story. So this is an incredible time. I'm so grateful to have this because I've been dying to tell stories for so long, and finally I have that ability. Whereas like when I get a new contract for my phone, I just keep my old phone and I use it. Actually, I use my old iPhone for a lav, basically a wireless lav. So I have also an old iPhone watch, and I just connect that to my phone, and then I just got a lav mic for $60, a lavalier, and that's it.
Yeah.
And so that can control that. It's insane how much can be done with so little, and it really has to go. The story has to be solid, and also I think pre-production is such an important thing. As a director as well, it's so important to have that, those steps of, okay, let's review this script again. Why are we doing this? What are this in shots? And then also, on set to have a little leeway or also improvise. I mean, I think it's really great to improvise also in film, not on set, but even before production starts. Uh, for instance, Birdman with Michael Keaton. Um, as I understood, they they shot for they rehearsed for 2 weeks. Uh, then they took a break, and oh no, that wasn't Birdman. Sorry, excuse me. Uh, it was the Steve Jobs movie. That's what it was. It was it called Jobs? I think with Michael Fassbender and Kate Winslet,
Oh,
2015.
yeah.
So Steve Jobs, 2015. That was they did that in basically 3 acts. They rehearsed it for 2 weeks, and then they filmed. Oh no, sorry, they filmed for 2 weeks, and then they rehearsed for a month. I think it was.
That was
They
the one
oh no,
that
they
was
stopped.
all done in that when he was going to give that presentation, right?
Yeah, yeah. So
Okay.
actually, no. What happened was they rehearsed for 2 weeks. They stopped production for a month, and then rehearsed again for 2 weeks, shot, and then stopped production for a month. It was insane. So it's so amazing, and you see the performances there that taking that time, and it's done with other films as well, and I think it shows in the performance and even the filmmaking when there's real rehearsal done, it really just adds to it. And it's so amazing too. I really love watching pre-production as well, because it takes new form, it takes new life. You have just a room, and even there's like tape on the floor. This is where the table is where that is,
right?
And things just kind of take shape, and then you see like the actors just like, okay, well, this doesn't feel natural. Let me see. Let's try this, and then you have the screenwriter there, script editor,
right?
And then little words are added, even just an just a little like there could be something that just happens naturally with the actor, and it's like, no, let's put that in the script. That was perfect, because it just adds to that. It adds to that conversation, and it pushes the story forward. And I love that about film. The process is so beautiful. And as you said before, sometimes it's sad to finish a project, because it's just you're saying goodbye to it and just letting it go, and like, there was just such a wonderful journey.
Oh yeah.
And then I can't wait for the next one.
Well, yeah, and when you're a part of something like that, the specific group of people that you were a part of that with, you're going, let's connect next time, and you do find that in different crews and different sets where you have a lot of the similar people working together because of that, because they have that synergy
Yeah.
as a team. That's awesome. Well, I was gonna play this little game with you before we got to the end here, because we're also gonna do that other bonus uh, podcast for our Patreon page.
Mhm.
But I wanted to do this little game, and I'm wondering about this now because you named so many films. So there's a shout out game that we play, and what I wanted to sort of turn this game into for you, in your case, I was going to have you shout out in 20 seconds as many films, like movies that made an impact with you. But I think you already named like at least 4 of them. um, do you want to try it though?
Um, sure.
All right. Okay. Well, so basically, this game, you got 20 seconds, and I know I'm putting you on the spot here. But basically, name 20 films in 20 seconds. No, I'm sorry, as many films in 20 seconds as you can, that made an impact with you somehow. Are you
Okay.
re- are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, and go.
Empire of the Sun, Raging Bull, Pi, Aliens, Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, uh, Whiplash, uh, Some Like It Hot, Taxi Driver,
Wow.
Vertigo. That's it, really?
Yeah. Wow.
Saving
Hold on.
Private Ryan, Extinction.
Like,
I could keep on going.
yeah, I was trying to stop this, and my alarm is basically my iPhone. Um, and I was trying to stop it, and it wasn't working. So yeah, you could go ahead and cheat. Yeah, you could keep on going. It's amazing because usually for me, when people say name one of your favorite films, I'm like, ugh, because so many come to mind, nothing comes out. Um, yeah, that's funny. Yeah, Pulp Fiction. What was the other one you named? Reservoir Dogs. That's pretty awesome.
I want to say Apocalypse Now, also 2001,
Oh, that's an epic
Space
film.
Odyssey.
You know,
Did I say
the
Vertigo already? I said
stories,
Vertigo at the
yeah,
end.
this Vertigo is the one that I think I was thinking about when we were talking about your film, with the stairwell and everything,
Yeah,
with that
yeah, I
music,
thought about that
because
too.
it's so contradicting, like it almost gives you that effect.
Star
Um,
Wars, Psycho, Modern Times, Citizen
I
Kane.
just saw. Did you see The Last Jedi, by the way?
Yeah,
What'd you think of it?
yeah.
Just might as well just have a few your little criticism on it or whatever, because I just saw that the other day.
It was entertaining. Um,
There's a lot of controversy about it.
yeah, I haven't heard any of it actually. I saw it in 3D,
That's
and
how I
that was
did. It
pretty
was.
awesome.
It is, huh?
And I usually avoid watching in 3D because I really want to. I don't know. There's something about seeing in 2D that's special. But 3D adds another layer to it, of course. And I think that could be actually a little distracting sometimes because we look at it's like looking at a painting
Yeah.
and not knowing who the artist is at all. Um, someone who never heard of Van Gogh looks at a Van Gogh painting, for instance, and has no idea the backstory. I think knowing the backstory really adds to what's on canvas, right?
Yeah.
So with 3D, I think it's can be deceiving sometimes. Um,
I like 3D.
the
I really do. And the reason why I think is because if I'm going to see it at the theater and pay the big bucks to go see the movie, I want the whole.
the whole shebang.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, then for me, I mean, then for me, it's just like if we're gonna go 3D, let's just go IMAX 3D.
Right?
Give me the wide perspective, everything,
And if it's raining
and
in the
hoping
movie, I
that
want it to rain on me.
yeah, and if it's what's even better if it's shot in IMAX. If it's shot in
Yeah.
IMAX and shot in 3D, then it's great. Then the director intended it, the storyteller intended it to be that way. Uh, there was a time where Scorsese, he didn't want to shoot in widescreen
Oh,
because televisions were still in 4:3. So he actually took a lot of time before he shot in widescreen. I forget which film it was that he shot in widescreen, but I think was it Goodfellas? Um, I'm not sure, but he that says something to me, and that's interesting because I really want to see what the director intended. That's why I didn't see Blade Runner in 3D because I read
oh, I didn't
somewhere
see
that
that one.
there was an interview where the director said he did not intend it to be 3D. He actually intended to be in just normal 2D, and that was a film I could rip apart. Um, but Star Wars, um, like I said, it was very entertaining, and there's a few things that stuck out with me that I really enjoyed. Um, for one, the part, well, I don't want to spoil it, but that moment of silence, or that really epic um, kind of death happens, and
Mm.
there's silence and space
Oh, yeah.
and brightness, and it's just so violently quiet
I know exactly
that
what you're talking about it because
that
when
that
you felt that
yeah,
way.
yeah, yeah, and that's just for me that really resonates, and that's like yes, awesome. And I think that for me, focusing around that, it was brilliant. Because I'm someone that really like, The Empire Strikes Back. Because I mean, the title is called Star Wars. We're talking about war, and war is not nice.
Right.
War is not pretty. War is not funny. And even though they try to focus for all audiences, and I understand how the franchise has gone, and they want to attract younger generations as well, that they have to, crack jokes here and there, make it funny. And I liked that they did not go over the top with those jokes. They were there, but it wasn't too much.
Well, part of this film was also like almost like a family reunion type of a feeling with it too.
Yeah, it felt like it went back to the roots
Yeah.
for me. Um, uh, I'm a little skeptical about um, some of the, I guess I would even say, actors or even direction on some things. But then I'm going through a fine tooth comb and finding something to be critical about. But overall, great job. They did great. It was a great film, and it was well done. And
Well, I will say for me that one character in particular, and I won't name which character, was sort of out of character in the film.
yeah, um, it's hard to, you can only get so much out of some actors, and yeah, when it shows.
Yeah.
And I think it also shows when an actor is reluctant to do what the character has to do in the film. It's just kind of all over the internet too. The kind of he doesn't hold back punches.
Yeah,
on
I
on
haven't gotten too deep into it because it's almost like looking behind the curtain in the middle of the play, right?
Yeah,
Like I don't want to know what until I can actually swallow the whole thing, you know, have the experience of eating that whole meal before I find out what went into it.
mhm,
Um, but I will at some point because I'm really curious about, like what we were talking about with your film, the backstory,
yeah,
to it. And then it'll
yeah,
justify a few things I've heard, you know, but yeah, obviously I don't want to end up having this podcast and have to say, "Oh yeah, we spoke about Star Wars. Big
yeah,
spoilers."
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
want to do that. But yeah. So, all right, is there anything else that you'd want to before we go on to the next uh part of this, is there anything else that you'd like to say to our listeners? Any revelation or advice or something?
Um, if you are in a film and you want to make films, just do it. Don't go to school. Don't spend your money. If you do have the money to go to school, I would suggest use that on your production and start very low first. Learn, there's tons of places on YouTube. A lot of the tricks that I've learned in editing have been on YouTube. Research, watch lots of films. Just Google um, top 50 films of all time, um, and search out all the great cinematographers as well. Cinematography films. Uh, Research, really dive into it and do it every day, every single day. As if you're learning guitar. Practice every day. If you practice every day with an intent to learn and gain something, just a few hours every day could be so helpful. Also, just filming anything, writing anything, watching something with intent of learning, taking notes. It's so important to remember scenes for instance, you mentioned vertigo earlier. Yeah, to remember those moments, to recognize it and make it your own, and don't steal. I think it's important to steal from many different films as you can, because no matter how you try to, I don't want to say, I don't think you should copy it. I think Coppola said this. Um, uh, you should definitely steal, because no matter how much you try to copy, you will make it your own. I mean, you shouldn't make a copy like one-to-one with a film, but you should just steal that shot, that frame, that movement. I mean, how many times we've seen an over-the-shoulder movement? Jesus, it's like in every film, there's an over-the-shoulder. But why?
And the more you do that, the more you can get creative and make that your own after.
Yeah, try wide. Um, uh, look at extreme wide. You know, two people sitting on a table in a giant warehouse. You really want to go over the shoulder and make it tight? What is the scene? What's the calling of the scene? You know, is this a standoff? You know, maybe you want to go extreme wide to show the space between them, or the space around them. I think it's really important to explore, and I mean, there's a reason why films are on that top list, and I think that should be looked at, and they should be stolen in one way or another, in terms of, not in a bad sense. It's not a, I know stealing is a negative word, but it's more, no matter what you try to do, no matter how you steal it, you're going to make it your own, because it's completely different. It's your story. You're telling a different story. You're in a different location. You might even have a little bit different lighting. But you know, how many people have stolen,
A moving
one
close
shot?
up or something like that. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
there's a
zoom
reason
in.
why like when I do workshops and I tell people, look, you're just even in editing, right? The different transitions. If you're going to use a transition between a scene and another, why you would use this transition over another. And once you
Mm-hmm.
start to test them, let's say you have a row of all these transitions, right? You start testing them
Mm-hmm.
and putting them on there, and then you see something and going, that has this effect, and it's because you've experienced that effect so many
Yeah,
times, because so many filmmakers have used it in their films for that reason,
yeah,
you know?
right,
And so you're
right,
not really stealing, but you're applying things that work in the industry into your film. And then you can twist things around a little bit and get creative with it.
exactly,
So,
exactly.
so yeah, be like
And I think
Mike,
that's so
do it.
important. Yeah, yeah, and if I think, and think about the story. What are you saying? What are you telling? I think that's so important to why are you telling the story?
Yeah, like in your film, everything has a purpose.
Yeah, there's a
So,
meaning to it all.
all right,
Yeah,
everybody. We're going to say goodbye on this show. Go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/SBP podcast to get the second bonus episode. And thank you, Blake Worrell.
thank
That
you.
was amazing.
Thank you.